Hi, everyone. Welcome to another KE Report webinar. My name is Corey Fleck. I am your host for this webinar, also your host over at the KE Report website. I am featuring Awale Resources in this webinar. Awale is traded on the TSX Venture Exchange under the symbol ARIC, and I am joined by Glen Parsons, President and CEO of Awale Resources. Now, we're going to be focusing on the company's renewed exploration strategy in both Suriname, on the back of a very recent acquisition, and Cote d'Ivoire, all underpinned by a Newmont Earn in JV. Now, Glenn, I've been having you on the show quite regularly over the last year or so as this kind of transitioned and renewed exploration strategy has been outlined, and especially on the back of that Newmont Earn in JV that really has brought in a whole new light to the project. Now, for everybody tuning in, we will be taking your questions. I've already gotten a couple of questions emailed to me by some of you that are attending, I assume. Please use that Q&A, the question and answer area within this webinar software to send your questions to me, and I will be interjecting those questions as Glenn works through this presentation. Now, again, Glenn's going to talk us through this presentation. I'm going to come in with the odd question. Please keep sending your questions in. If you're having any trouble using the software, you can email me, fleck@kereport.com. I will be watching that email as well as the question and answer function. So, Glenn, please take us away. Teach everybody a little bit more about Awale and this renewed exploration strategy, please.
Yeah, thanks, Corey. Thanks for having me. Thanks, everybody. Yeah, I think as you mentioned, over the last year, we certainly have been developing our story, our IOCG story up in Odienne. And, the momentum of the business has been slowly changing. It has taken time. Yes, we've been in difficult markets. But as a business as a whole, the fundamentals of this business, as we say, are pretty sound, and our strategy is certainly underpinned by a great JV. So we just talk about exploring new frontiers here, but ultimately it's really about building a diversified copper gold exploration company. So let's go through it. Just a normal disclaimer. Just so that everyone is aware, just the way we operate, and that's one of the key things on how we operate. We do operate in underdeveloped regions, but the main driver for us is underexplored prospective regions. Due to the nature of these regions, we always try and ensure, and we do ensure, that we have community engagement and support. And just to say that we are 100% committed to strong social and environmental governance. And that's pretty key to being able to operate in jurisdictions like this. So just as a quick investment summary in terms of where we are now, we think we're building a pretty robust exploration business, being very systematic. And what have we achieved? We've got significant foothold now in two major gold provinces, West Africa, Cote d'Ivoire, and the Guyana Shield, Suriname. Okay, we've got an aggressive strategy to gain 100% exploration upside. And that is, again, that's on the back of what we call the Newmont underpin, the Newmont JV at Odienne. We've got district scale footprints in Cote d'Ivoire, and now district scale footprint or project acquisition in Suriname. The JV, we call it a fast track strategy, which is actually it's been underpinned by the Odienne Newmont JV. The earn-in is up to 75% in the Odienne project, of which $15 million is spent in two phases. And that includes the delivery. The second phase includes a delivery of 2 million ounce gold resource, of which at that time we would have 25% of. We do operate as an experienced team. Certainly our systematic exploration approach has reaped rewards, and the Newmont JV is certainly a testament to that. And we have operated in Suriname as well before. So as on the whole, the team is pretty skilled in terms of what we're trying to achieve here with these two areas of focus. We've got extensive exploration programs. The JV has got a $2.5 million budget for the next field season. So that's the end of 2023 field season. We have made some nice discoveries as Awale, in its own right, the Empire Gold discovery, and then really this IOCG setting, the large copper gold footprint setting that we've discovered. And ultimately, it's been those two that have actually attracted Newmont to doing a joint venture with us. We are the first company they're doing a JV with in Cote d'Ivoire. They've been eyeing out Cote d'Ivoire for some time. So we feel pretty proud of what we've achieved and been able to attract someone like Newmont who really doesn't come into a project unless they're really seeing 5 million plus ounces. They want a large mine there, and that's one of the key things that they see on our property at Odienne.
Glenn, just real
coming
quick,
to
who runs the JV right now? Who is the operator?
Okay, good question. So for I was going to go through this later, but a good question now. Effectively, Awale is the operator. Okay, for the first 3 years, if Newmont wants us to carry on being operator in the next 3 years, we can be. But essentially, we are definitely the operator in terms of the agreement for the first 3 years, and that's effectively fully funded, or both phases are fully funded by Newmont up to 15 million plus the resource at the end of the day.
Okay, thank you.
So just in terms of how we operate, or why we operate, or why we actually how we drive our business. I mean, one of the key things is we do go for highly prospective, underexplored regions, and generally we try and make a first mover advantage. We did that in Cote d'Ivoire, and with our acquisition in Suriname, we certainly have another first mover advantage there. So that is something of significance. As I say, we have an experienced management and technical team committed to social responsibility and economic upliftment, but ultimately build a project diversification in mining-friendly jurisdictions is something that's key to the business pillars and being able to deliver growth. The scale that we look at from our targets, we generally would be trying to go for district scale opportunities. We've achieved that in Cote d'Ivoire, and now again in Suriname. Just the package that we have there certainly is district scale. The way we approach our exploration, it is a systematic approach. We really are pretty thorough in terms of slowly developing, our targets. And then economic grade. I mean, the focus on economic grade and scale, ultimately for realization. I mean, we do see ourselves as developing a resource and then ultimately doing either a joint venture or selling a project to the likes of a Newmont down the line. Just quickly, just to go through the corporate structure or the corporate summary. I mean, principally not much has changed. We have 31 million shares in issue at the moment. The acquisition will add another 21 million shares once it's finally approved. And we do have some warrants out there giving us a fully diluted share issue of around 44 million. Our market cap is very low at the moment, even considering the large earning that we have. So we think that is a huge opportunity going forward. And now with the Surinamese exploration property package with 100% upside there, certainly the ability to grow that is significant. Just in terms of our shareholding, I think that's probably the key thing to note, and specifically going through our recent AGM, where we actually had shareholders approve the transaction. And we took out the disinterested parties, the disinterested parties actually voted. And we had Newmont, Sandstorm, Capital directors, other directors and management, and certainly family offices, and all of those are supportive. So we really did have over 80% supporting the transaction going forward. So that is a significant plus for us, obviously, to having that support.
No, Glenn, I think it's also important to note Newmont does hold a share of the company too, outside of just this JV. It all kind of came together in the same deal. Can you just outline that, how as much as they are focused on Odienne, they still hold that over 10% of the company? Yeah, sure. Yeah, so part of the deal in terms of when they actually came into the JV, we did request a commitment to equity, if you want to call it. It's not normally what they do. I mean, they might do it to facilitate the initial acquisition, but certainly that was part of the deal. So they came in for 10% of the business, and then effectively the $15 million earning to get them up to that 75 or 65. It's actually 65%, plus they can buy out some minorities. So the first phase, if we just go through,
I will get there, but just so let's
Okay,
just carry on for the
thanks.
moment. Just in terms of the building, so the way we see this business is obviously the building blocks for growth. And Cote d'Ivoire certainly, and the Odienné project is certainly providing the foundation. And then the Odienné district outside of the JV is giving us the leveraged 100% upside. And now Suriname also gives us leveraged upside in terms of having a foothold in a jurisdiction where actually Newmont operates as well, with one of their most profitable mines in the world today. Our focus areas, as we said, are Suriname and Ivory Coast. Those are just, it's just a depiction, just when the continents were parting, really say we are in the same geology at the end of the day, similar greenstone belts, and hence why we actually like this region, or both those regions, and they are underexplored, specifically Suriname. Okay, so let's just talk about the acquisition now. This is just some photos from there were originally 4 drill holes that were actually put into the main property, being the Goliath property. And there you can see the quartz veining and the higher grade gold certainly sitting in that quartz veining. And then in the saprolite above, you can see that clay material. You can see the veins, the multiple veins that you're seeing in there. And that's obviously what we're looking for, multiple veins to actually bring us tonnage and ultimate resource. So just coming to what we've actually acquired, and this has been approved by shareholders, but we are still going through the motions with the TSX to get it fully approved. And one of those conditions is the technical report, which is currently in progress. But just the opportunity, we have a first mover opportunity here in Suriname. The capital is Paramaribo. Effectively, we've got the main highway going out to the west, and then we're coming into logging roads coming down into the property. So that's a 3-hour drive from Paramaribo, which is actually pretty exceptional in this sort of terrain. And this area down here where I'm focused here, this is the Goliath project that we talk about. The main license is an exploitation license, and then we have these contiguous other permits, exploration permits around there. And then we have the Zenith permit, which is a really early stage property around the Reunion Barrick Alliance. And this all sits effectively on what we say the Saramacca trend, as well as the Rosebel trend here. This is the Rosebel mine, which I'll get into a bit later, and that's Newmont's mine out there to the west, to the east, the Marion mine. So this is an attractive district scale concession package. The Guyana Shield is very underexplored, and Suriname is very underexplored. There aren't many operators there. We feel like we have a significant foothold and actually have a leg up here. It is a mining friendly jurisdiction with Newmont, IAMGOLD, as I say, which has just recently been acquired by CGN. Logistics are good, and we have an experienced team that has operated successfully in Suriname.
Glenn, can you give us any more information on Newmont's mine there? How big it is, how much more mine life there is? What more can you tell us about that mine?
Well, at the moment, there's around 6.3 million ounces of reserves that they've got there now. And it is at around about, as far as I recall, around sort of a 2-gram material. The mine life, they are looking to extend this as well and go underground. In terms of mine life, I actually can't tell you what the mine life is, but it would probably be in the region of around 10 years to go. But ultimately, they are still trying to develop new areas. They are actively exploring as well. So that's on the Newmont side. We know that they are looking at other areas. There's certainly interest in terms of what we're doing as Awale. But from a project perspective, we're actually sitting more on the IAMGOLD trend at the moment. And if you just look at the next slide, from a structural perspective, you're seeing the Rosebel mine, which is the old the IAMGOLD mine that's been in operation, that's just been sold. They actually are looking at new reserves or new resources as well. So they're on a lookout for exploration properties. So that obviously suits us from a strategic perspective. But we're actually sitting on the Saramacca trend, where there is a 2 million ounce odd resource here. And ultimately, we're looking at this trend where it's coming into our Goliath prospect. And ultimately, we're seeing a sort of a tilting, or it's from going from a northwest structure to a northeast structure. And it's a case of trying to understand, we need to understand that whether it's an intrusive block or whether it's been a large fold that's actually happened there as well. So that's something that, the further work that we do will certainly uncover that. And then we've got these contiguous licenses off these structures. And obviously work will obviously start on those as soon as possible when Awale gets in there. But the main focus for us is Goliath prospect, where ultimately we do have an initial gold discovery from the previous owners. And, it is a large package and something that we certainly can develop, and we see the potential to develop, some tonnage as well as hopefully some large resources at the end of the day.
How much work has been done at Goliath? How much drilling? How much surface work? What more can you tell us?
I think I'll probably move to the next slide and probably be able to answer a bit of that, Corey.
Thanks.
So just in terms, so we just focusing, just so that everybody knows, we actually are just focusing for the moment. The most advanced property is the Goliath prospect, okay? And that is still early stage, but some drilling has been done there. The previous owner from the previous owners that we bought it from, actually there were Chinese operators here that effectively were operating around what we call the Goliath pit. It's a relatively small pit, around 250 meters in diameter. And they're probably down at it's a flooded pit now, it's around 30 odd meters deep. And they were effectively operating, going into saprolite, coming to the foot of the base of the saprolite and really watching it from a gravity perspective. And they've been operating, we know, pretty successfully for some years there, and it's obviously a pretty big artisanal pit. In this diagram here, you can see the faint yellows that you can see here are all artisanal workings on this property. So there's significant artisanal workings and around this, what we call the Goliath pit. And all that stems from everything is stemming from this area here, which is actually a mountain, what they call the Goliath mountain. Not really a mountain, but it's a large hill for sure. And all the drainages that you're seeing, all that have actually been worked from an artisanal perspective. So with the previous owners, what they had done is they'd actually done some ridge and spur sampling, soil sampling, and then they did 4 holes underneath this Goliath pit. And effectively, that one of those, or actually all 4 holes were mineralized, but one would be probably called a discovery hole, and we'll go into that now. What subsequently happened with that, these lines that you can see here are auger lines. So with the ridge and spur sampling that they've done and soil sampling, what we're pretty wary of is that gold mineralization in situ mineralization, or is it transported material? And so one of the key things that was done over the last year was actually doing these lines, and they're auger lines. So they're power auger lines going down to about 4 to 5 meters, and effectively taking an in situ sample and then actually analyzing that. And the results, what you see here is this trend. So this is, sorry, I'm just trying to get my mouse there. This trend that you're seeing here throughout the property is effectively a gold trend that you're seeing here. And it's an 8-kilometer gold trend. But we have this high-grade vector here that we, from the discovery at this pit. So the idea is moving, trying to define strike length from that pit area. And the nice thing is that we do have at least an 8-kilometer long gold trend, as well as a coincident arsenic trend as well. So going forward from an Awale perspective, when we get into the property, we would want to be doing some verification work on this for sure, as well as trying to do some infill auger to try and extend this from the known mineralization and to move with confidence slowly down the trend and be able to expand and extend the strike. That would be our intention. We would probably only get to drilling in the next dry season. So we do operate under a wet season here, being around May to August. And then we can come in again into September, where we start seeing, rains abate and being able to do work. So that's the intention from a work perspective. Just coming to the pit, and I think this is one of the key things to note is, this property is an attractive package, yes, but is there mineralization is probably, to drive us to go into this along that Sarah market trend. And as I said, this is what you're seeing here is the Goliath pit. That's the Goliath pit in that area. And the depiction here is actually interpreted the old pit that they were mining. And with these 4 holes, so these are only 2. So you're looking east. DD3 was the most significant that we had. And as I say, from any exploration company with intercepts like this would call it a discovery for sure. So that's obviously one of the key things that drives us to this is that we have a great vector to actually move along that 8-kilometer strike to actually build those ounces. So you just go down, down the depiction of what we're seeing. Oh, sorry. We do think there's some shear zones, those northeaster shear zones now, or high strain rocks, and that's where we're seeing these vein swarms and the high grade coming in. 2 meters at 6 grams, 9 meters at 5, 2 at 4, 3, 12 at 2. So really nice intercepts. And obviously the key thing is being able to develop strikes so you can build ounces and you can ultimately get a nice resource. And the good thing is that all 4 holes, no matter which direction we did drill, we've actually got mineralization. So orientation, we don't have the orientation. So that's work that we have to do as Awale. And so we actually look forward to actually getting into this as quickly as we can would be great.
Are there any permits needed, Glenn, to get drills on the ground?
No permits required. This is actually a mining license the Goliath area is actually a mining license, an exploitation license, historic, and we can actually operate here quite easily. Obviously, we still just carry on from a governance perspective, as well as building a resource and being able to bring this into production and being able to report it properly. We obviously are going to be going through all the steps that you would normally go through, even although it is a mining license already. We will be getting to scoping study. We will be getting to feasibility study to prove that we can actually fund this operation going forward.
Okay.
So now moving to, so that's the acquisition. So that is really adding a second bow, or a second arrow to the quiver, if you want to call it. And how is that underpinned? Why did we actually go into that? And the idea is really trying to develop a multi-pronged business that can actually deliver multiple chances of value for our shareholders. And it's underpinned by a nice fully funded JV at the end of the day. So coming to the JV, I have really gone to this, so I won't really harp on it too much, but ultimately we're looking at the JV being this granted license here in the red square, and then the application area to the west. All the other applications and the other granted licenses are 100% Awale, and then Bonduku, what we drilled last year, which really didn't quite deliver what we had hoped, and therefore when we started seeing what we've seen at Odienne, and then with Newmont coming in, obviously all our focus is on Odienne and ultimately is fully funded by Newmont. So that's where we say the growth strategy really underpins or is underpinned by Newmont.
Yeah, there's clearly a lot of interest in this Newmont deal. I think mostly because it really is their foray into Cote d'Ivoire too. So please keep taking us through this.
Yeah. So I mean, so now we're coming to why did they actually, what is the excitement from a Newmont perspective, and what is our excitement at the end of the day? So in this one permit that we have, obviously, and that's the Odienne permit that we would call it. I mean, we've got our discovery, which was the high grade Empire discovery down in the south, which is along the Empire corridor. So the Empire discovery was over here. And that's where we know we've got a nice, we would call it a deposit, and we would think that we have multiple chances along this of actually replicating that sort of pooling site, so we can actually build ounces. When we drilled again, and we were looking for one of those satellite sites, we actually came across the Charger prospect, which actually was our first inkling that we were onto something totally different. So Empire is an orogenic system. and the Charger prospect we see as more of a magmatic fluid system with an iron oxide copper gold signature alteration style. So that is suddenly what's popped out of Charger, and you can see that by way of the core, this hematite altered core here, and that's where we saw this fantastic intercept of 3 meters at 9 grams, 89 grams of silver and 0.7% of copper. And that really made us take a step back and say, what actually, we thought we were chasing orogenic gold, and actually we into something totally different. And that's where we actually went back to our gold data and started coming up with these large copper gold footprints, specifically the Sceptre area, even the Kava where we absorbed before, Dengele is coming up, and now we've discovered Landau prospect up in the north at a further 3.5 kilometers, and then effectively Landau's 8 kilometers and a 3.5 kilometers at the recently reported BBM prospect. So all of these are displaying polymetallic mineralization and anomalism. So suddenly we are looking at this different systems. You've got orogenic system or multiple phases of mineralized styles coming through here with these large round blocks that you see there, which are these granite intrusions. So the setting is certainly paving its way to being a proper IOCG province, and hence why we went quite early on and really tried to lock up the province as well. But ultimately, and that's where we say Newmont the JV is underpinning our growth strategy even in Cote d'Ivoire, because ultimately we unlock Odienne within the JV. Suddenly our district play becomes really valuable to us going forward, and that's ultimately what we're driving at. In terms of
that map does a good job of showing all these targets. Sorry to interrupt you there, but will they all be drilled next year, do you think?
Well, certainly that's the plan. I mean, for sure. So just to come to that, if we're looking at what, and there is another slide, but that doesn't matter. This is quite a nice slide to work on. The plan is now we've really refined. Our latest releases have been geophysical releases, as well as greater clarity on terms of the actual anomalism around Sceptre, in terms of being able to refine targets. And the idea is that we will be going into drilling at the Sceptre, specifically Sceptre East at the moment, as well as Charger. We will be drilling this year. So the idea is before the end of November, we'll be commencing a small drill program up to around 1,500 meters, and we'll be trying to tap into what we're seeing, and I'll get into that slide where you can actually see what the target is. So that's for now, and that is in terms of the budget, the limited budget that we've got with Newmont for this year, because they came in late in terms of their budgeting process. Going into next year, we alluded to at least a 2.5 million budget going forward, where we will be doing greater geophysics over the granted license as well as the application, and hopefully getting that converted as well, and then developing more targets. We haven't finished our target generation here at the Odienne granted permit now, but we will be coming into Landau and the BBM prospect certainly to get to scout drilling, and then moving it forward ultimately to hopefully be able to do extension drilling and infill drilling, and hopefully a resource. The idea is we want to have a proper discovery, IOCG discovery next year, and Newmont is of the view that is achievable as well. So it is an aggressive program. They're coming in nice and aggressively, which we're managing, and we're obviously pretty excited about getting into these new targets. So this is just to highlight exactly what I said. So this is just the Sceptre East. So this is that Sceptre area, and that anomalous copper gold anomaly that we have. It's 20 square kilometers, and we're just doing at the moment. We've enhanced our targeting and confidence in Sceptre East on the back of the geochem, and then we've overlaid that in terms of the geophysics on the right, the chargeability. And what you can see is it really is aligning very nicely on the structure. So this is a northwest trending structure that we see here. There's a bit of a confluence with the northeaster right on Sceptre East. And when you look at it from what are we targeting from a sort of a 3D perspective, you're looking at really nice chargeable bodies that we will be targeting. So those are the three lines that you're seeing here, the three lines looking east. So we're looking that way. And those bodies that you're seeing, or they're really an amassing, what we say, a massing of sulfides. Reason being is that you're seeing the rocks around not really that chargeable, and that's what we would expect. So what's driving the chargeability is generally would be an amassing of sulfides. So, and the question's always going to be, are those sulfides mineralized to the extent that you think that's going to be economic? And that's obviously going to be the test. That's always the test in exploration, and that's what we do best. So this small program that we got now will be targeting these bodies specifically, trying to obviously get the best targets in terms of the mineralization anomaly, as well as now this chargeable anomaly, and effectively trying to get into these bodies. And if it is, when you look at other areas in the world, these IOCG provinces, you would generally see, maybe there's an outcrop or maybe there's a thin breccia that you would follow down, and suddenly you come into a body, and that is ultimately what has been mined in those areas of significance. So that's what we're chasing here. And if it is copper gold, that'll be great. If it's gold, it's great. So it is just a case of we just got to wait for those results. And obviously, the quicker we can get in, the sooner we get the results. So we hope to be drilling, as I said, end of the month. Hopefully, be finished by the middle of December. And I suppose first results will probably be coming out sometime, early Jan, middle of Jan, going forward. So that will be sort of the timing of that.
So is it mostly near surface targeting, at least initially here with this first program?
Well, near surface is, I suppose, relative. If it was just on the anomaly, it would be surface targeting. But I think with the geophysics, it's certainly we are wanting to come into these bodies so that you're coming into what you think are the sulfides and getting an understanding of those sulfides. They are, generally speaking, if you just look at the depths here, what we see in those chargeable anomalies are coming in around 50 odd meters to 100 meters depth. 50 is probably the average. So 100-meter holes will take us into these bodies. Some of those will go a bit deeper for sure. But we will be we'll be trying to put this together and actually target a little bit better and be able to go into those bodies and actually get a good idea. So that's what we are trying to achieve.
Okay.
So just coming to those analogies again. So why do we say the districts? So this is the Odienne here in the West Africa that we're talking about. And the setting is very similar to those settings, IOCG provinces in the rest of the world. So we've got this these cratons, which is the old stable crust, and effectively the crustal margin that we're talking about here is where we've actually had these collisions of the plates and the continents, and driving tension. You're getting these intrusive bodies coming through, bringing these magmatic fluids coming from deep. And what we're seeing is the pathfinders that we would typically find here in Australia, in the Olympic Dam province and in the Caracas province, is exactly what we're seeing here at Odienne. We've seen copper, gold, moly, silver, tungsten. So the setting, those pathfinders are there for the same system. It's a case of, is the system as mineralized as some of those other areas? And that's why we think that we are on this discovery. This is a new discovery for Ivory Coast in terms of IOCG setting or IOCG mineralization. So, we are at the forefront here, but maybe, and maybe we are on a massive on a massive district, or an Odienne IOCG province, should I say. But you can see the scale of these, just the sheer quantity, in terms of the resources, massive tonnage. Grades are, yes, a little bit lower, but it's ultimately the volume that drives the profitability here, and the multi-element, credits that you're getting. So copper, gold, and silver. So this is really, they are significant deposits, and that's what we think that we're on.
So since these are such big deposits, when you do get into IOCG systems, does that mean we should be expecting after the initial drilling large step outs, wide step outs, just to show that there is scale?
I don't think you need to go straight away to large step outs. I think one of the things is probably the depth as well. You know, at the end of the day, the bodies, all those bodies do carry on at depth. It appears like they carry on at depth. We are doing at the moment. We are doing an IP line, which will probably go down another further 100, 150 meters at least. So that'll give us an idea of does it look like it carries on at depth? But when you do look at these other provinces, you know, these systems are huge and they do just go down. So the tonnages are just massive, and we can obviously step out. I mean, there's no doubt. You know, Olympic Dam is huge, even in terms of width or diameter. So it's just got the scale to significant scale to excite Newmont. Obviously excites us, and to have somebody help fund us, you know, this sort of scale, and for us to be part of it is actually is a great thing. And as I say, really does underpin us to be able to do other things which can deliver value as well on a timeline basis, and we can go through that.
Okay.
So just coming lastly, or just in terms of the Odienne district again, you know, to what we're saying. So just really on the map side, trying to show the JV. The JV is obviously, we've got the Odienne granted license, we've got the application, the yellow application to the left. So that falls under the Odienne JV. And then we have the Awale 100% properties, which are the recent acquisition from Turaco. This needs to be renewed by June. So we're treating it as effectively an application to a degree because it needs to be renewed. And then really this exactly the same setting. If this is if we can confirm this is a proper IOCG system and we really are onto this, then suddenly all these application areas are of huge value, because you don't just get a single deposit in these type of systems. It's a multiple deposit, or it's the crustal margin that we're looking at, and you will find repetition of that sort of style all the way along it. So suddenly these become very exciting for us as well, and they are 100%. So we would need to start converting those. So the plan would be that we start converting those to granted licenses as well over the next year. So that's the plan.
Do you have work commitments to convert those to granted license, or what is the process?
Well, the process is you've obviously got to put in a work program, and you've got to give commitments in terms of that program to be able to advance, and it's on a 3-year basis. So we would be able to, we'd have to be demonstrating that what we're going to do is going to take us to the level that we've achieved here at the Odienne JV. The nice thing is we would have a methodology that works. We can work quickly. We can actually be pretty efficient in terms of moving these things forward to actually target phase, drill, start drilling phase. Are we in it or are we not? Move on to the next one. Yes, the next one might not be as mineralized as this one, and then you move on. So we would have to make sure that we are spreading the risk in terms of the work that we're doing, so that we are going to get results. I mean, that's ultimately what we're wanting.
Okay.
So just to try and put that in a timeline and a summary of really what we're doing over the next period. So Q4 is nearly finished, yes. But in Cote d'Ivoire, the foundation, we'll keep on calling it the foundation, and that is the Odienne Newmont JV. We're finishing off IP at the moment, nearly finished IP. The drill target definition is nearly complete, or certainly at Sceptre East it is, and the plan is obviously for the start drilling to happen this year. So that's all according to plan, and things are moving along nicely. The Cienfa granted license, mapping and sampling. We are commencing some work on that in terms of understanding. There's some historic data on that from Turaco, as well as from Resolute before. And now we'll be taking that over and really moving and starting to do work on that in terms of verifying that early work that was done, and using our methodology again, what we've developed at Odienne, to try and start identifying targets straight away on this. And that will move into the sampling and geophysics phase into the new year. In terms of the new year, 2023, at Odienne, we'll be doing a detailed Areag program, as well as geophysics, probably gravity as well. And gravity helps define these deeper bodies, which is obviously key to these sort of IOCG systems. And then just moving through drill targeting at Lando, BBM, and actually do some scout drilling there, and then effectively follow-up drilling, hopefully on Sceptre East and Charger as well. So that will all be incorporated into next year, and then moving through geochem sampling on new permits. And then slowly just, I won't carry on going through, but effectively moving those forward. So really 2002, 2023, really getting into Odienne itself and starting to work the 100% district scale stuff for Awale. In Suriname, we're going to finish off the year. We have been doing bits of mapping and sampling, but obviously we are waiting for the acquisition to be fully approved by the TSX. So realistically, that mapping and sampling will carry on into the new year. We'll be doing some new auger infill, and then really drill targeting. Effectively, we do have drill targets now, but ultimately, we really do want to make sure that we've done infill drilling and really verified some of that work for our own sake, just so that we can go in with confidence, and really looking to do the Goliath scout drilling and extension drilling along that trend in the next dry season. So everything will be building up to sort of September 2023. So if one looks at just take this picture and an overall timeline, the Odienne JV really is just pumping, and is going to carry on pumping going forward, which is great. In terms of the Awale 100% upside, the granted license or the applications, that just sits, and we just got to go through the motion, and we're not really in control of that. We are subject to the regulators, but hopefully with the success of Odienne, we'll be able to maybe fast track at least one or two of those to actually move those, get them to the stage that we can actually start working on them. So we'd see that only probably later in the year, that we can actually really get into the early, they are greenfields properties. We've got to do that systematic work to get in there. So there's a bit of a time lag in terms of the Odienne district, and that's where Suriname comes in quite nicely now, because it's actually something that we can deliver on pretty soon. We really do have drill targets, a little bit of upgrading of those targets, a bit of confidence for us, and really we are looking to go straight into sort of a 5,000 meter program into the second half of next year straight away, and go for what we think is going to be extending the discovery to make it a proper discovery, if you want to call it, and then we can actually just extend that further, that we can actually see some potential for a resource, and then we can actually do further infill and extension drilling, and then moving into metallurgy and really getting down to scoping. So Suriname really fills a nice void, but it's not just a void, it's actually complements the whole strategy, of a new area. It's a very underexplored country. We know how to operate there. It's a long trend from known big mines in Suriname, and we certainly have first mover advantage. So overall, the business is looking pretty good.
Okay. Glenn, we have a couple questions that have come in. We are at the end, so let's address them. This one came in a little while ago. It's going to be hard for you to answer, but what do you think the potential is of bringing Newmont even into the new projects in Suriname? Is that part of the strategy here, is developing this relationship in Cote d'Ivoire, possibly having them also join in the Suriname projects?
I think if one looks at from when we've actually approved the acquisition, and I as I stated, and as is known in the release, I was conflicted. I was involved, or I am still involved with the acquisition in Suriname. But in terms of the decisioning that was made, one of the factors, besides being a highly prospective country and we can see mineralization, was the fact that yes, the potential to do a potential transaction down the line, if you want to call it, with Newmont is certainly a strong possibility. We know they are operating in Suriname and operating very successfully. As I say, they've got, their most cost-effective mine is the Marion mine. It certainly played a factor into say, listen, we would have an ability to actually do a deal, from down. We do look at it from an ultimate realization perspective. So it played a part in some of the decisioning, yes. And then from a Newmont perspective, I mean, there's no doubt they're always interested in new properties, new targets. If it has potential, and if it has big mine potential, Newmont would be interested, certainly, as well as others around us. We do have there's the Barrick or Reunion Alliance, Zijin now. They need reserves as well. Operating the Rosebell mine, if we have some high grade, that's the Goliath. The whole concession area is actually in trucking distance. It's it really is in trucking distance if we've got the grade. So we think it's working in our favor. And then Suriname as a jurisdiction for new entrants, certainly, if the project is stacking up, there should be interest outside of just the guys that are operating there now, because everybody's looking for good new discoveries.
Okay. Another question came in. You mentioned a couple of times that your team does have some history in Suriname. Can you take us through some of that history? Sure.
So, sorry, I'll just quickly go back to the Suriname. So yes, so Mariana Resources, which I ran before as the CEO of, and the team, we certainly operated. Sorry, I'm trying to get my mouse now. There it is.
There you go.
Down south of the Marion mine, there was what we call the Nassau Plateau, or the Nassau Project, which is east of the lake. We operated that for two and a bit years, and we actually went. We did a nice exploration program. We did have some luck in terms of mineralization in the sort of 30 to 40 meter auger holes that we were doing. However, from an overall perspective, in terms of our strategy at the time, that project specifically wasn't actually. We couldn't see the economics coming from what we had done. And did we want to stay on there, or did we pursue our other strategy, being at the time being involved and using our money in the joint venture with on the Hot Martin project in Turkey, which ultimately was very successful for Mariana and gave us the ability to sell Mariana to Sandstorm. And then we actually took Awale back out, and ultimately the team came back out as well. So that's when we say we know how to operate here. We certainly understand the lay of the land. We understand the regulator, and we have success in terms of how to operate in the jungle. So that's really our skill set at the moment.
So Glenn, since this Suriname acquisition, it's still going through the exchange, as you mentioned. Does the company have any plans to continue to grow their project portfolio? It almost sounds like you are going down the direction, as this one listener notes, of almost a prospect generator. Is that fair to say?
Obviously when you do a joint venture, you become a prospect generator anyway, but it's not really our fundamental core. At the end of the day, it isn't. We see, and that's where we talk about leveraged upside. We see 100% upside around the joint venture, and that's Awale property. If we find something, and yes, at the moment we're on a 5 million market cap. When you're trying to move a big project forward, it's actually very hard to do that. So the underpinning, if we have success with Newmont, then ultimately our 25% is massively successful and actually drives the ship. So we automatically have exposure to the upside, and to move it forward, to actually find a deposit in that district, in the Odienne district. Sorry, I'm just getting in that Odienne district is huge. We're the ones that have been doing the work on Odienne. As I say, the guys there, our team, led by Andrew Chubb, has been very systematic. in terms of making sure we've got the confidence to move forward. And that's what's also been appealing from a Newmont perspective, is that we are doing things very thoroughly and appropriately. So we know how to actually probably hone in now on what we're looking at, because it took some time to uncover. Before we were only really working the southern end on that orogenic structure, and then with the uncovering of this copper gold mineralization style, suddenly we re-looked at everything, and you can look at things in a new light, and suddenly we fast tracking. You look at those targets that we've developed in a very short time, BBM, Landau, suddenly you're moving, so that we can do on the other application areas. So that's why we are excited about the leveraged upside in Cote d'Ivoire, except it is going to take a little bit of time to get there. So what do? We can add value elsewhere if there's an opportunity, and we are entrepreneurs at the end of the day, being an exploration company. If there's a good opportunity that you think you can deliver on, well, it's worth taking it, because that's what we do.
Okay. Final question then before I get you out of here. Talks about the potential of diluting the Awalé shareholders within this JV with Newmont. I assume he's asking more or less when or if Newmont gets to that 65 and then 75% interest in the Odienné project.
Yeah.
What happens then? Would Awalé potentially just further get diluted?
Okay, so in terms of the deal, yes, we go down to a 25% interest, with them spending, and remember, they're spending 15 million to get to that 65%. From a Awalé perspective, we only own 90% of Odienné at the moment. So we will give up 65% of Odienné for their 15 million, but they only get their extra percentage. They get to 51 in the first phase. And then the next 14% is the spending of 10 million, plus they need to deliver the joint venture a 2 million ounce minimum resource, gold. So that is the key here. So we aren't diluted at that stage. Then going forward, so now we're sitting with, if we've got a minimum resource, that means you've got 500,000 ounces. It looks like it's going to be a bigger mine. Newmont is staying on, so you would say, okay, well, the potential for them to stay on and develop bigger resources is what they would want. They generally like 5 million plus ounces. So suddenly we're looking at, okay, well, we would have probably 1 million, 1.5 million of attributable ounces of that. So that would be what you can see. So how do we get there is the question I think you're asking. Yes, when we go to feasibility phase, and that's after at least a 2 million ounce resource, we'd be going to feasibility phase. If we go to feasibility phase, we'll have the right to participate. We have the right to participate in the feasibility and maintain our interest. So if we fund our share of the cost of the feasibility, that's the 25% cost, obviously, we can stay at our 25%. If we want to dilute, we can dilute, and Newmont can pay the feasibility. So we can dilute and go down to 20%. So now we sit at 20%. If we go to the next phase after that is the actual mining production phase, or go to building the plant and then production, then ultimately that's another funding cost for Awalé. Can we fund that? Obviously, we can assess at the time, can we fund it? If we can't fund it and we think the best way to go forward is actually to dilute again, we can dilute by 5% again, and Newmont will fund it fully all the way through. So that's the possibility for us. If we want to go down the fully funded route all the way through to production, it'll be we end up with 15%. Okay. We're of the view that certainly one would have to check in terms of where we are from being able to fund this. But as this project moves forward, as our projects are suddenly coming on stream, if we're getting to that, our projects are starting to become attractive and should have value, we should be a different company, and we will easily have the ability to fund, specifically going into production. So, we don't see that as a real risk to us from a decisioning perspective. Definitely on the feasibility phase, we would see having an ability to fund our feasibilities would be very high. So we don't see that as a real risk. In terms of actually producing, do we want to fund that? Well, that's going to have to be a decision at that time. But again, I think Awalé will be a different beast because of what's uncovered at Odienne and because of what then the region brings, that we actually don't necessarily have to dilute.
Okay.
So we don't think is a major risk at the end of the day.
Okay. Thank you, Glenn. Thanks for taking that question. If anybody has any follow-up questions for Glenn, please email me, fleck@kereport.com. I will be having Glenn back on the show to more or less continue to highlight the news and how this story and company continues to advance. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you for sending me your questions. Glenn, thank you for your time and this update on Awale Resources.
Thanks very much, Corey.